Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. This is our final day of Chapter 11, and I'm excited to wrap up our study of growth and expansion with you. Today we're looking at how America dealt with the rest of the world during this period of rapid growth. We've spent 3 days focused on what was happening inside America's borders, factories, transportation, and the growing divide between North and South. But today we're asking, what about America's relationships with other countries? Think about this for a moment. For 3 days, we've watched America grow and change inside its borders. Factories transformed the economy. Roads, steamboats, and canals opened up the West. And we saw how unity turned into division, with the rise of sectionalism. But here's the big question. What about the rest of the world? Did other countries just sit back and watch America expand? Or did they try to interfere? Today, we're going to see how America dealt with other countries as it grew into a world power. This is about foreign policy, how nations interact with each other. Before we move forward, let's quickly recap what we learned on Friday. Remember, if you're absent on any particular day, you're still responsible for the work that is assigned on that day. We learned about the era of good feelings, that period after the War of 1812 when Americans felt really united and proud. Henry Clay proposed the American system to try to keep the nation united through economic policies. But then sectionalism emerged. That's when people started caring more about their region, North or South, than about the whole country. The North and South disagreed about tariffs and slavery. And we learned about the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which temporarily balanced free and slave states in Congress. So America was dividing internally, with these North-South tensions growing. But at the same time, America was still growing externally, expanding its territory and influence. Keep that tension in mind as we move through today's lesson. Foreign affairs. The War of 1812 heightened Americans' pride in their country. Americans also realized that the United States had to establish a new relationship with the Old World, the powers of Europe. Relations with Britain. In the 1817 Rush-Bagot Agreement, the United States and Britain agreed to limit the number of armed naval vessels on the Great Lakes. Each country was to take apart or destroy other armed ships on the Great Lakes. The Convention of 1818 set the northern boundary of the Louisiana Territory between the United States and Canada at the 49th parallel. The convention also created a secure border. Each country agreed to maintain its border without armed forces. Secretary of State John Quincy Adams also negotiated the right of Americans to settle in the Oregon Country. The U.S. improved foreign relations with Britain through 2 key agreements. The Rush-Bagot Agreement limited naval forces on the Great Lakes, and the Convention of 1818 set the U.S.-Canada border at the 49th parallel. Now let's look at Activity 1, Florida and the Adams-Onis Treaty. We will examine the sequence of events and cause and effect leading to the U.S. acquisition of Florida. Remember, the first and last events have been answered. Relations with Spain. Spain owned the colonies of East Florida and West Florida. In 1810, American settlers in West Florida rebelled against Spanish rule. The United States government then argued that West Florida was included in the Louisiana Purchase. In 1810 and 1812, the United States took control of sections of West Florida. This map shows the acquisition of Florida in 1819, including the territory annexed by the U.S. in 1810 and 1812, and the territory ceded by Spain in 1819. The territory claimed by the United States reached west to the borders of Louisiana and Mississippi. Spain objected to losing part of West Florida but took no action against the United States. The Florida problem arose because Spain was weak and could not control the territory. This led to tensions when the U.S. seized parts of West Florida in 1810 and 1812. Native Americans living in Spanish East Florida sometimes raided American settlements in Georgia. General Andrew Jackson was ordered to stop these Seminole raids. Jackson believed his order included pursuing the Seminoles into the Florida colonies. In the spring of 1818, another general, William McIntosh, led Creek allies against the Seminoles in Georgia. Meanwhile, Jackson followed fleeing Seminoles into Spanish West Florida. After pursuing the Seminoles, Jackson and his troops moved farther into West Florida. There they seized the Spanish forts at Pensacola and San Marcos. Secretary of State Adams had not authorized Jackson's actions, but he did nothing to stop them or to punish Jackson. The Florida problem intensified because enslaved people escaped there. Seminole Native Americans launched raids, and pirates used it as a base to attack U.S. ships. Spain failed to stop any of this. Jackson's raid demonstrated American military strength compared to that of Spain. Secretary of State Adams believed that the Spanish did not want war and wanted to settle the dispute. Adams was correct, and with the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819, Spain ceded or gave up control of all claims and ownership to both East and West Florida. They also gave up claims to Oregon Country in the Pacific Northwest, while the United States agreed to Spanish control of Texas. In 1818, President Monroe ordered General Jackson to stop the raids. Jackson invaded Florida, exceeding his orders. Spain was unable to fight back, despite being furious over the invasion of their territory. In 1818, President Monroe ordered General Andrew Jackson to stop the raids. And Jackson did more than that. He actually invaded Florida and attacked Spanish forts. Now this was controversial. Jackson exceeded his orders. He went way beyond what Monroe had authorized. Spain was furious, because this was their territory. But Spain was too weak to fight back. And President Monroe, he supported Jackson's actions. This sent a clear message to Spain. You can't control Florida, and we're not going to tolerate these problems on our border. By now you should have answered. Activity 1, question number 2. Spain was simultaneously losing power across its vast empire. Independence movements, like the one led by Miguel Hidalgo in Mexico, led to many colonies gaining freedom. Spain lost control of much of its empire in the early 1800s. Mexico gained independence in 1821, and leaders like Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín freed much of South America. Next, let's explore Activity 2, the Monroe Doctrine. We will examine why this doctrine was issued and what goals it aimed to accomplish. In 1822, 4 European nations, France, Austria, Russia, and Prussia, discussed a plan to help Spain regain its American holdings. The possibility of increased European involvement in the Americas troubled President Monroe. There were also concerns about Russia's intentions for controlling land in the Northwest. The president issued a statement on December 2, 1823. The United States would not get involved in the internal affairs or wars in Europe. It also would not interfere with any existing European colonies in the Americas. At the same time, the statement said, North and South America are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. The Monroe Doctrine, as the statement came to be known, served as a clear warning to European nations to keep out of the Americas. It became a guiding force in American foreign policy in the decades ahead. In 1823, President Monroe issued a bold warning to European powers. This became known as the Monroe Doctrine. Listen to these main points carefully, because this is what you'll write about in Activity 2. First, the Americas are closed to future European colonization. No more colonies in this hemisphere. Second, any European interference in the Americas will be seen as a threat to the United States. Third, in return, the U.S. won't interfere in European affairs. We'll stay out of your business if you stay out of ours. Fourth, the Western Hemisphere is America's sphere of influence. This was bold. America was basically drawing a line and saying, Europe, stay away from the Americas. Please answer the exit question. Why does conflict develop? Reflect on today's lesson, then circle your self-assessment of your understanding of the material. We have concluded Chapter 11 covering the major changes between 1790 and 1840, including economic innovation, transportation growth, sectionalism, and America's emergence as a world power. Answer the unit reflection questions for homework. This homework asks you to think about the big picture of everything we learned. What was the biggest change in the United States between 1790 and 1840? How do the essential questions connect to the chapter? What connections do you see to today? Now, before you go, let me remind you about your homework assignments. Remember, I will check your notebook on Friday for all Chapter 11 classwork and homework. Also, you still have a chance to complete missing assignments for Chapter 10. For Chapter 11, draw a map of the United States in the 1820s. Chapter 11, Lesson 1, page 301, questions 1 to 4. Chapter 11, Lesson 3, page 315, questions 1 to 4. Finally on Wednesday, Chapter 11 quiz, covering Day 1 to Day 4. Reminder again, the second trimester ends soon. Complete all missing assignments for Chapter 10 and 11. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka atubu ilayk. O Allah, you are free from every imperfection. All praise is for you. I testify that there is no true God except you. I ask your forgiveness, and turn to you in repentance.